footage. I used it to,
Through my shirt
yeah.
and up here.
Directed President Reagan in a commercial in 1992,
Yeah.
and that's the mic we used.
Really?
He was doing a political endorsement for the governor of Utah. And he told us, he was like, as we were tipping him up, he was telling stories about Frank Sinatra. And he was drinking water and said, I roll tape up behind the scenes so I have it so people know I did it. He said, I was told that when you speak, you drink warm water. And the one who told me that, the first was a Baptist minister, the second was Frank Sinatra. Yeah. So I had an hour with him, and it's just
That's
the
terrific.
funniest guy. He's just telling great jokes. Okay.
How the mighty have fallen after an hour with him, 10 minutes with me.
No.
Incidentally, I don't hear very well. So if you
Yeah,
ask me anything, you gotta say it real loud in my ear.
Jason Dash. Mike.
The last interview I did yesterday was good. The guy gave me a mic to hold in my hand. It was here, and it was so easy. Just
Yeah.
they don't do that anymore, though. And you're not kidding anybody, because everybody in the audience knows you wear a mic.
Right.
All the viewers know it.
I got the hard drive from Ross, I'm gonna dump everything on.
Yeah, wear a black shirt purposely for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where's the other camera? Oh, see again.
Where's the slow cam?
Is that it? Sorry?
You guys ready to go?
Didn't they grab it?
Where is it?
Didn't they grab it?
Didn't you?
Yeah.
Then close this window, okay?
Okay, great.
Do you want to close?
Yeah, here it is.
Close the yeah, thanks.
There we go.
Well, hold on. I screwed up something. Okay.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Let me bring a fashion model full tag over here.
Let's go a little lower here.
My God, 3 cameras.
He's doing
This is like a major production. $100 million budget.
Stan, if you could look right here, that's where I'm going to be, right where my hand is. There you go. I'll come a little closer here. There we go. Stan, just give me a count to 10. I'm just going to get a level real quick.
All right, I'm now giving you a voice level. I'm going to count to 10. I'm going to say 1, followed immediately by 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm running out of breath, but
Okay,
I'm
we're
still
good.
going to...
All right.
Not even close, man. It'll probably be good at night. We're just-
Now, the big thing is we have to make sure that I can hear you.
Okay. I'll,
Okay, that's fine. Bye.
Maybe we can have a translator stand between you and me.
my quickie notes here.
Always get everywhere like that when you can.
All right. So Stan, basically the day Jim Steranko walked into Marvel, and he was bringing in his work, and I wanted to know the first impression you had of Steranko's work when he presented it to you.
Well, when I first saw Steranko's work, I said to myself, wow, this guy has a style all his own. Because a lot of the artists who worked for Marvel, they all worked in pretty much the same style. And Jim was as much of a designer as a comic book artist. And that was apparent the minute you looked at his work. My first thought was, will it be popular with the fans? Because they're not used to seeing this type of thing. But then I looked at his artwork and I said, I love it, and I don't think I'm much different than the fans. And if I love it, why wouldn't they love it? So I didn't let Jim get away. I said, you got to do some work for us.
Yeah.
Damn right that was good.
Yeah. You know, when he brought in Nick, you know, and among the books, he picked a book, or which book? Why Nick Fury? How did that come to Jim?
Well, it may sound funny, but usually when an artist came to work for us, we didn't have a choice of finding which was the best book for him to do. It was usually a case, which strip do I need an artist for? Because the artist just quit or something, or I wasn't satisfied. And Captain America came to mind. I mean, I was looking for an artist for Captain America. Hopefully somebody would give it a different feeling, a newer, more original type of treatment. And then I saw Jim's artwork, and it was like kismet. It all came together.
In Nick Fury, he changed in terms of shapes of things. I mean,
He changed in terms of what?
in Nick Fury, you know, he started
Nick
doing
Fury.
Yeah, the Agent of Shield. He started doing cinematic panels, and
Yeah.
and balloons were taken away. You know, no balloons, and the action sequences were very dynamic. I mean, his storytelling technique was really had changed. You know, was taking a different approach.
Jim's work, I guess if you had to find one word to describe it more than any other word, it would be cinematic. He did his strip as though you were watching a movie. In fact, with his Shield strips, there were times when he had no dialogue at all on a page or pages. You just followed the action, looking at the pictures, the way you will in a motion picture sometimes, where there's no dialogue, and you just see the scenes. And as I say, Jim was as much, or probably more, of a designer than he was just a comic strip artist. And everything he did, even before you looked at the individual panels to read what the story was, you were almost hypnotized by the look of the entire page, which generally looked like no other comic book page had ever looked.
He did a lot of other interesting, like even with Captain America, putting him in a graveyard. Went very dark in some of the stories, and because he had actually started writing some of the Nick Fury. But he went almost gothic and dark, which had not been done before.
Jim was a man of many moods. There were scenes, Captain America stories, it took place in a graveyard where the whole thing was gothic. It didn't seem like the rest of the Marvel stories. And that's what I loved about Jim's artwork. It had its own style and its own feeling. And even his covers especially, his covers were works of art, works of modern, contemporary art. And they were so memorable. People today remember, even though he didn't do that many, they remember his covers because, sort of like I remember when Will Eisner did The Spirit, the first page of every Spirit story had the title, The Spirit, but it wasn't just lettered. The letters were always part of an intricate design. And that's the way it was with Jim. Jim's covers weren't just drawings. They were very carefully thought out, intricate designs that were drawn.
Right. And he also was he the first that actually started writing the stories himself and illustrating?
No.
Oh, he wasn't.
No, we've had a lot of people did that. The fact that Jim actually wrote some of the stories and did his own illustration, of course, helped to give his work that very individualistic style. And I was happy to let him write the stories because he was good. His work was so different and so original. I just wish he had stayed with it. But he did a number of strips, and then he stopped. There were other things apparently he wanted to work on. And it was our loss, because I would have just kept him doing our books forever.
Right. Jim,
Was Jim difficult? I know him well, so I can ask. Was he difficult, or was that creative difficulty part of, sort of his process?
I had absolutely no difficulty working with Jim. I've always found that people who seem to be the most talented, I'd say 100% of the time, are the easiest to work with. It's usually the ones who feel a little insecure about their own work that sometimes give you problems as an editor or an art director. But Jim was a joy to work with, and he was the kind of guy, just give him his head, let him go, and he brought back a great strip.
Okay.
How about that, huh?
Thank you
Pretty
so
damn
much.
good.
I'll get that. You grab a picture.
Yep, absolutely.
You don't trust me, huh?
He is.
There, I did it.
He's gonna grab that. I'll wait till we'll.
Yes, I have it.
Good time.
Can my guy get a picture of you and me, just a
Yeah,
quick
sure.
thing, and then I'm gonna switch with him.
All right, here we go.
Thanks so much. Hold our glasses off. I don't like that. There we go.
You're the one that does all the editing, right? Yeah.
Couple there.
Perfect.
There we go.
Another one?
Quick, and I'm gonna get these. Jason's gonna get with you, and then just hold on to that.
You be sure to give Jim my regards.
I will. I'm gonna. Wow, see tomorrow.
Oh, is he here?
He's here. We're shooting tomorrow. As a matter of fact.
Maybe I'll see him.
Yeah, we're shooting a little round table with some other artists. When we're here. Sounds good. Thank you, Eric. No blanks, we're good? Okay, good. Thanks a lot.
Okay, a pleasure. Nice to see you. You did a good
Yeah,
job.
so what?
Good luck with the movie.
Hold on, sign one of my books, is that all right?
Sure.
Sweet, thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have my cell phone number for me?
So, I need to, so the, I actually have to sign at the bottom here. What I do is I added, there's just like, it states that the footage won't be using anything outside.
Is it 190?
I think that's two versions, so I'll give you guys sign one.
What's your name?
That's Jason.
How about the desk?
Jason.
C-H-A-S-E-N.
J-A-S-O-N.
Oh, Jason.
Jason looking for his Argonaut.
Me too.
Yeah.
Do you want me to
Do you want me to call you JD Mark?
No, you just call me when you're ready. I know it's the one number I won't recognize. Okay, perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Also, if it's okay, I got a guy named Scott. Oh, his birthday. Thank you.
Here you go. Here you go. Okay, thank you so much.
Scott.
S-C-O-T-T.
Thank you. Location was tenfold better.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll just pick it up.
Try to make it always good.
Really, really appreciate it.
You want to put your folder in my bag or something? You want to put your folder in my bag?
I would have got my
All right.
I never saw that photo.
I was trying to get the one you given the finger, but it's coming out quicker. Thank you again.
Sure.
Stan, you want anything to drink, some water?
What are we doing?
We're waiting, the car's getting picked up, and then we're gonna head over to the monster thing tomorrow.